So I attended the Safe Talk half-a-day training with Dawn in May at the Shadsworth Hub. I think it definitely has because suicide is something that is quite intrinsically woven into my everyday practice. I work as a public service interpreter. I support lots of people with mental health issues, and that's something that inevitably crops up. And also it surprisingly or not surprisingly, gave me a lot of reassurance in my personal life because I have lost a relative to suicide. And even though I'm not going to lie, a little bit apprehensive about going on to training because of, how it kind of links to both personal and professional aspects of my life. Dawn made us all feel incredibly safe. We had some fidget toys, we had some sweets, and it was really clever because, you needed a bit of that break and comfort, and there was something there. And also she made it very safe and very comfortable for everyone to discuss something that's quite a drastic subject. So I'm very, very happy I went on that training. To my family, to my immediate family, to my mum, I'm Polish. I'm Polish national, and topics such as mental health, breakdown, difficulties, suicide are still shrouded in a lot of stigma in Poland. It's very often an embarrassing subject, and being the way that we are as Poles, we often have this quite unhealthy attitude of trying to grin and bear it, bottle it up instead of discussing things, and without betraying any confidential information. I have assisted families during coroner hearings. I have assisted people who have lost someone, but I was able to have a conversation with my mom. And one thing that Dawn said was quite an eye-opener: the fact that most people will have a passing thought of suicide, and that suicidal ideation is not something that's just confined to people with severe mental health illnesses. Not always. It's something that's a lot more common and widespread than people think. And I think it really helps to get rid of that stigma and to ultimately support someone and save someone's life. So yeah, in short, I was able to just kind of pass on some of those messages immediately. Um, yes, I feel a lot more confident talking about suicide. I no longer feel that it's, kind of a delicate it is a delicate subject, but, the one thing that Dawn mentioned about the myth that if you ask someone, that puts an idea into their head, that really resonated very strongly with me. And I no longer feel, for example, just yesterday I was doing a police interview, and there was an enhanced risk assessment form being filled out at the end of it. And there were questions about suicide and self-harm. And I no longer had to fight with that feeling of embarrassment. I just ask those questions because they are part of health and well-being screening, and they are just the questions that you asked and not something that you should feel a bit icky about, if that makes sense. I think for me, something that resonated very strongly were the case studies and the scenarios that Dawn shared from her own practice. The training was very well prepared in terms of statistics, numbers, what you would call dry facts and figures. But what I think really made it come alive were stories that she, kindly shared with us from her own decades of practice. And also one story about where she basically made a mistake. She didn't, carry out a perfect or an adequate intervention, but it still was successful. I think it's very, very good to learn from others, and I think it's really good to hear, stories, because ultimately that's something that we as humans really can relate to. I think after that training, I believe that anyone and everyone should attend the training. I understand not everybody may feel robust or resilient enough to become a member of the Orange Button scheme, but I think everybody should have some sort of training, and everybody should have that conversation about how suicide is not just something that's very marginalized, that's something that's very unusual, because it isn't. And I think as a healthy community, if we want to build one, I think we should be very, very mindful, of how, our colleagues may be, feeling a bit worse. Because one thing that always kind of makes me feel a bit, not unpleasantly surprised, is when someone says, oh, this such and such committed suicide. There was absolutely no signs, there were absolutely no symptoms, but Dawn actually said that people will sometimes communicate, they will behave in a certain way, and you've got that window of opportunity to, you know, react. And as someone who has lost a parent to suicide at 13, I look back and I think, you know, there's always some guilt kind of related to that, and I can see how people will say, oh, we didn't know. But I think, it is very important to have that awareness, because you never know when you'll be able to support someone or where you'll be able to support yourself. So I think we should get onto this initiative, as a borough. And we have lots of wonderful organizations who are working with people in recovery, who are very vulnerable to self-harm and suicide, etc. That should be attending that training. It is it's incredibly important, because I firmly believe, as someone who kind of is a multi agency practitioner myself, I believe it's incredibly important and valuable to go to a training which literally gives you tools to save someone's life in your immediate vicinity, in your family, friends, extended community. And the fact that you can just attend it without having to bear the financial burden, for me, it's a no-brainer. I think anyone who has the capacity to sacrifice, or should I say invest, half of their day should go on this training. No, no-brainer.